how can the town reduce the tax burden on homeowners relative to commercial properties?
Level is really the way to, make Connecticut or Wilton more affordable.
Mr. Orlandi?
Sure. So as I think about the question, there's actually a straightforward answer to the question, but to answer it more holistically. Based on the Board of Finance's role, our job is to set budgets. It's not to control the grant list. It's not to control what comes in. So if the question is how do we keep costs down, it's to control the budgets. The answer is that simple. But I'll give you a more holistic view. How do we set our taxes, right? What is the answer? It's our grant list. What is the grant list? It is the value of all of the property in Wilton. Right now, our grant list is $5.8 billion. During revaluation 2 years ago, the reason why we saw a major shift is the relative value of our residential property to our commercial property went from 77% to 80%, a 3% shift. That 3% shift is why all of us saw relatively high relative tax increases. So the way to get it down, again, it's made depending on your viewpoint. People have different views here, but it's development. And again, that does not sit with the Board of Finance. I'm not even sure if that's it for P&Z, right? Just people coming in. But it's to have more people move here. Right, as an example, 141 Danbury Road, which is it's a new apartment complex that came in. By the time it's fully occupied, that's going to add about $1.5 million new dollars to Wilton's grant list. That is $1.5 million that all of us here do not have to pay. That is the way that you shift it down. It's by pulling people in. Now, aside from that, again, that's not part of what the Board of Finance can control. What we control is budgets. And so that's where it comes to, I'll say, fiscal discipline. Fiscal discipline means as the budgets come in, it's making sure that we're spending not more than we have to. Right? Yes, we need to spend money. Our teachers, they need to be paid. Our employees in town hall, they need to be paid. But it's making sure we have an eye on that. And that's how we control the mill rate growth.
Ms. Roberts?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Surely. How can the town reduce the tax burden on homeowners relative to commercial properties?
Okay. So I agree with Matt, what he was saying, and I think Kim and probably Eric said the same thing, that it's not the Board of Finance's job to do that, that we can't jigger the balance between commercial and residential. That's not, we can't affect that really. We can't technically, but I do think where I differ maybe is that I think we can help with it if we coordinate more with the Board of Selectmen and P&Z and have kind of, a co-op of maybe meet once a month or something with the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, and P&Z to figure out how do we recruit, how do we more aggressively recruit businesses, commercial businesses to Wilton. And while multifamilies are good, and I agree with that, and I think with Riverview, people looked at it like the boogeyman, but we got far less students that people were afraid we were going to get, so I don't think it's the boogeyman. I think, high density housing in the right area on Route 7, I think is a good thing. But back to more aggressively courting businesses, I know that ASML, they bought Perkin Elman's in 2000, I think, and then they did a large expansion, I think, in 2010, and that expansion was due to a Wiltonite, Peter Benius, who was the CEO of Advanced CT, who worked very hard with, he represented Advanced CT, but I'm sure worked with probably the first select woman and others to figure out to make this palatable, their expansion here. So I think there's things we could do if we work together with the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and P&Z to, work harder with Advanced CT, which I don't think anyone talks to them right now, or, are there some tax packages that make it attractive to come here, or which not a tax break because we want their tax revenue, obviously. But, how could we I think we could brainstorm better about how to work together more aggressively to attract commercial businesses. And, ASML, they represent 3% of our tax revenue, and they, I think, complained for a long time about they needed more trained employees and how do they train them, and I noticed recently they have now a big van or a bus that they bring and they train their people in the parking lot in this bus. So how could we as a town help, like, hey, I don't know, just, either attract a vocational school or a satellite office of a college, like UConn Stores is in Stanford, how about one in Wilton or something like that. But I just think we could be, I'm not saying it's possible, but I think we could be a little more dynamic in trying to attract more businesses here.